And this video is gonna have only the 4 people that are like in my like family group. But I'm basically gonna be going a lot of places. I'm gonna be on a TV show. It's called, this would be the part that goes duh, but I'm actually gonna tell you it's gonna be America's Got Talent. I'm gonna be on America's Got Talent. My mom is gonna record a little bit, but that's like in December 10th, so we won't be worrying about that. I'll be
Before we start this video, I want to give a special thank you to my channel member Danielle, and if you are subscribed to my Patreon, thank you, and if you are not, make sure you head over to my Patreon so you can see exclusive videos that I cannot upload to my YouTube channel. In today's story, we're heading over to Tampa, Florida, but before we head to the Sunshine State, we first have to make a stop at Beaufort, South Carolina, where Stephanie Ann Chisholm Willis was born and raised. Stephanie entered the world in July of 1984 to her parents, Mary Chisholm and Robert Hewitt, and she had 4 other siblings, all older than her. She attended Battery Creek High School as a teenager and at some point met a man named Ricky Willis, got married, and on April 22nd, 2008, Steph gave birth to their baby boy, Ricky Ryon Willis. Little Ricky was most known by his middle name, Ryon, therefore that is how I will be referring to him throughout this story. Unfortunately, the marriage wasn't working between Stephanie and Ricky, so she decided to up and leave and moved to Tampa, Florida, where she didn't have any friends or family there, but she wanted to start fresh. While living in Tampa, Stephanie picked up a job to support herself and her son. She worked as a home care aide, assisting seniors in their day-to-day lives, and on the journey of furthering her career in the healthcare industry, she became a student at the Hillsborough Community College, taking up classes for certified nursing assistant. Those who knew Stephanie stated she was a kind woman. She loved to help those around her, whether she personally knew you or not. She was very family oriented and would often go back to South Carolina to spend time with her relatives. She loved being a mom, being sure to carve out extra time in her busy life to spend with her baby boy and creating memories. Ryon entered kindergarten in Tampa and went to Crestwood Elementary School, and while Ryon did have a learning disability, it didn't deter him from doing well as the years went by. By the time he got to 5th grade, he joined his school's music ensemble and began learning how to play instruments. The drums to be exact. He loved wrestling and making YouTube videos about his little life and his family members. At some point, Stephanie reconnected with a man she knew since young by the name of Tyrone Terrell Johnson. Upon reconnecting with him, Stephanie felt like Tyrone was an amazing man and he would be the perfect fit into her humble life with her and her son. Tyrone was a former U.S. Marine Corps serving for the country from 1994 to 2002. He retired from the military as a corporal for the Marines and a sergeant for the Army. Stephanie decided to introduce Tyrone to her family when her grandmother unfortunately passed away and she had to go down to South Carolina for the funeral, so she brought him with her. Now, Tyrone also had a son who was an adult living in South Carolina. He was 22 years old. He was one of 4 of Tyrone's children, but unfortunately, Tyrone lost his son to suicide on New Year's Eve, but it isn't clear which year based on my research. Tyrone was obviously crushed behind losing one of his children, and seeing him in grief made Stephanie feel like she had to step up and be the support system Tyrone needed at the time, so she allowed him to move in with her in her Tampa apartment with Ryon so Tyrone wouldn't need to grieve alone. However, about 1 year into the relationship, after Tyrone was settled into her humble home, Stephanie started expressing how she wanted out of the relationship to her loved ones. She just didn't like how codependent on her Tyrone became, and at times she said he could be very nasty and pretty angry, lashing out at her sometimes. Although no history of physical abuse, it seemed as though there was plenty of verbal and emotional abuse abuse and manipulation coming from Tyrone's end. However, being the selfless person she was, Stephanie didn't leave his side. Tyrone was on the downside, needing plenty of help after getting a foot surgery due to an injury he got during his time serving in the military, and Stephanie was right there to drive him home from the hospital and be of service to him in any way he needed. However, one Sunday evening on October 21st, 2018, just before 7 p.m., a 911 call was made from Stephanie's home. It was Tyrone who made the call, telling the dispatcher he had just shot 2 people after being physically attacked in his home. Police pulled up to the apartment complex at 4302 Mariners Cove Court and entered the apartment to find that the 2 people who were shot were 34-year-old Stephanie and her 10-year-old son, Ryon. They were both lying next to each other, dead on arrival. Tyrone was taken in for questioning, and that's when he broke all the way down. Soon as he got into the interrogation room, Tyrone began hyperventilating. He kept choking on his words. He could barely even speak. And big shout outs to the detectives because they were very patient with Tyrone, more patient than I ever would have cared to be. And I say that because of the story Tyrone gave police about what happened to his girlfriend and her son. According to Tyrone, all 3 of them were home watching TV, and Tyrone was in the mood to watch some football, so he changed the channel. This is when he claims that Stephanie got upset with him and started to verbally bash him. He said Stephanie was badgering him about sleeping all day and doing nothing around the house, even though he was recovering from foot surgery. And the ultimate blow, according to him, was when Stephanie spoke to Tyrone's son's suicide. Allegedly, she began berating him about his son's suicide by saying, quote, "I see why your son murdered himself like a pussy, because you're a little pussy." End quote. At this point, Tyrone said the argument became too much, so he went into the master bedroom to begin packing up his stuff and then FaceTime his father, who lived in South Carolina, to ask him if he could come and get him the next day because Tyrone was planning on leaving. He gets off the phone and claims that's when Stephanie came into the bedroom, yelling at him, started hitting him on his back, and pushed him off of his knee roller, causing him to fall down near the side of the bed. At this time is when Ryon allegedly came into the room, and according to Tyrone, Ryon supposedly accused him of putting his hands on his mother and pulling on him, making Tyrone have to push Ryon off of him. That's when things really took a dark turn. Tyrone snapped. He admitted to grabbing his Glock 22 40 caliber handgun and began shooting at Stephanie while she was standing over him holding a PlayStation console, stating he was acting in self-defense because he thought that Stephanie was going to attack him again by throwing the PlayStation at him. He shot her 3 times. He said Ryon had run out of the room before he even shot Stephanie, but once he heard the shots, apparently Ryon came running back into the bedroom to see what was going on, got caught in the crossfire, and that's how he ended up getting shot. Tyrone told the detectives between his pathetic panting that he felt like he had to shoot Stephanie because she was quote unquote attacking him. He claimed that all this happened in the bedroom. However, upon investigation, there had actually been evidence of a gun being shot in Ryon's bedroom. Not only that, there were bullet holes in the walls in his room. There was blood found underneath Ryon's bed as well as shell casings. Investigators say the blood under the bed was an indication that Tyrone went and sought out Ryon, who was scared to death, hiding under his bed after witnessing his mother get killed, to intentionally murder him. An autopsy later revealed that Ryon was shot a total of 6 times.
So I'm moving close to the front, all right?
Yeah. You said just
right in front.
Okay. Yeah, just have here. Well, we have a seat, man. Go ahead, have a seat. You're good. You're good. Thank you. Okay.
There you go, brother.
And would you like any water or anything like that? No? Okay. Sir, do you have any medical conditions that I need to be aware of? Do with me, right? Just... Okay. Just breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, man, okay? We're good, man. I appreciate it. Deep breaths, okay? Deep breaths. Breathe in. Breathe out. Tyrone, we don't want you to pass out on us, man. We need you to breathe, all right? Because if you breathe like that, you're going to pass out. Yeah. Just breathe in through your nose. Do you know where you are right now, Tyrone? Where are you?
Jail.
You're not in jail. You're not in jail. Okay? You're over at you're at a police station, okay? You're at the sheriff's office in one of our interview rooms, okay? Do you understand that? Tyrone, man, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry.
Not long after his confession sprinkled with lies, Tyrone was arrested and charged with aggravated child abuse, murder in the first degree, felony murder with a firearm causing great bodily harm or death, murder in the second degree with a firearm causing great bodily harm or death, and shooting at, within, or into a building. After a hearing where prosecutors asked that bond be denied for Tyrone, the judge agreed that no bond should be set as Tyrone was deemed a threat to the general public based on the crimes he committed. He was detained at the Hillsborough County Jail. I find it crazy that Tyrone shot that many times. You shot Stephanie 3 times, but then you ended up shooting Ryon 6 times. How many times was you shooting that gun? But anyway, on Monday evening, October 22nd, 2018, a vigil was held for Stephanie and Ryon where neighbors mourned their death, and you can hear them chanting, quote unquote, "No more fighting, walk away," including all the children who played with Ryon. The children were so confused as to why and how he was no longer going to be playing with them anymore. Stephanie's family said Tyrone's story was a bunch of bullshit for the most part, and they know for a fact that if he was really trying to exit her apartment, she would have gladly let him leave. They believe that Tyrone must have gotten physically violent with Stephanie and baby boy Ryon wasn't having it, so he stepped in trying to help his mommy. They firmly believe the mother-son duo died attempting to save each other's lives. Stephanie's family and loved ones were devastated. They were in shock. They couldn't believe the man they had recently met, whom Stephanie felt was worthy of bringing around her family, was even capable of something so monstrous. They said they had no indication from Tyrone whatsoever that he would have ever snapped the way he did. The only conclusion they could come up with is Stephanie wanted out of the relationship and Tyrone couldn't handle the thought of being alone and just lost it. They don't believe an inkling of the story Tyrone gave about Stephanie berating him about his deceased son and whatever else he claimed. Stephanie had too big of a heart to be so nasty to anybody that she loved.
Now a family is speaking out after a horrifying double murder in Tampa involving a mother and her young son. News Channel's Jamel Lene is joining us live tonight from the Mariners Cove Apartments. And Jamel, I know you spoke with one of the victim's cousin. They're upset.
Yeah, very upset and heartbroken, obviously, to say the least. You know, if you take a look at the back of the apartment, the candles are still there, a memorial from a vigil that was going on last night. The family is actually going to go inside for the first time of this apartment to gather their loved ones' belonging. Their message to the shooter, the accused shooter, Tyrone Johnson, rot in jail.
We have to get them back from Tampa to Beaufort, South Carolina. We have to pay for funerals, not one but two.
Family of Stephanie and Ryon Willis are still in shock over their senseless deaths.
Stephanie was living her best life at this time. She was happy. We hadn't seen her happy like this in years.
Detectives tell us they were shot by Willis's boyfriend, Tyrone Johnson, Sunday evening during an argument over watching football. Willis's cousin, Courtney Hightower, said Stephanie took Johnson in after the death of his son.
You know how it feels to lose a child. You know how it feels to go through death. And she was there with you the whole time. And then you take her and her son life.
Hightower says Johnson even took Ryon out the day before the shooting.
You took Ryon out on a wonderful day. You took him to the wrestling match. That was his favorite thing.
The family, including Ryon's father, were at the apartment today trying to cope.
My son.
Honestly, I just hope he right. I really wanted him to hurt himself, do something, but I just really hope that he's able to sit there and just think about what he did.
And right now, the family is raising money through GoFundMe. As for Johnson, he remains behind bars. He's expected to be in court on Saturday, and the family tells me they plan to be there.
Little Ryon had his own goals at just 10 years old. Like I mentioned earlier, Ryon loved to record himself talking about his family, and he talked about how he wanted to travel to visit several different places, and he couldn't stop gushing about going on the hit show America's Got Talent so he can audition, showcasing his drum playing skills. He was such a beautiful spirit, you can even feel it through the screen watching him. Stephanie's sister stated the only good thing that came from this tragedy is the fact that Stephanie and her son both died together. Had one survived, it would have been just a life of misery for the survivor. Trial was held, and during the trial, the defense team tried to say that Stephanie and Tyrone had been drinking and they both spiraled out of control during the argument, and his charges should be reduced to manslaughter because this was a crime of passion. They also argued that Tyrone wasn't this monster that he was portrayed to be. They said he was a man who served his country in the Marines and Army and a loving father of 4 children, but thankfully the jury wasn't buying what the defense was selling. After the 2-week trial, it took the Hillsborough County jury made up of 7 women and 5 men about 5 hours to deliberate after seeing Tyrone's interrogation video and photos of the scene. And on Wednesday, November 17th, 2021, Tyrone was unanimously found guilty on first-degree premeditated murder and second-degree murder charges, and the jury recommended that he be sentenced to the death penalty. As Tyrone listened to the results of the jury's decision, he showed no emotion as he just stared straight across the courtroom. Stephanie's father and Ryon's grandfather, Robert Hewitt, could be seen shaking in his seat as the jury's decision was read out loud. He said he felt like it was the best call the jury could have made, and at the same time showing compassion for Tyrone's family, stating, quote, "They didn't commit the crime, Tyrone did," end quote. Tyrone's loved ones sat behind him as the verdict was read and left quietly afterward with his attorneys, who told a news reporter the family would not be offering a statement on Tyrone's behalf. After the jury found him guilty, Judge Christopher Sabella didn't immediately agree to the death penalty sentence because all the evidence and arguments needed to be reviewed further. Well, a little more than a year later, in December of 2022, the judge decided that Tyrone will be sentenced to death.
Just a few hours ago, a judge sentenced Tyrone Johnson a year after a jury found him guilty of shooting and killing Stephanie Willis and her 10-year-old son, Ricky Ryon Willis, in 2018. Tonight, Stephanie and Ryon's family sat down with our Angelina Salcido to talk about what happened that night and what's next.
It took 4 years for Stephanie and Ryon's family to get to this point. Stephanie's dad and stepmom walked through these court doors today for what they hope is the last time. They say this death sentence isn't closure, but a chance for the man who killed their family to experience what they went through.
I mean, it's been hell.
Time hasn't healed their wounds.
My hardest part is always thinking about what they went through. Just can't imagine what would cause someone to just open fire on their girlfriend.
Tyrone Terrell Johnson charged with both murders. Robert and Amber Hewitt, both in South Carolina at the time. Stephanie's older sister Valerie was too.
I saw it, double homicide, and I just lost it after that.
Before his sentence Monday, Johnson apologized.
He's just trying to save his life.
The final decision from the judge, the death penalty.
You just never know until you put it in that position how you're going to feel about it.
It won't bring Stephanie's bright light back.
As a lovable, beautiful person that enjoyed life.
I would get a lot more closure when he's executed and I'm in the witness chamber watching it. I just want him to feel that terror. You know, that sounds bad, but that's what I feel.
Now, this execution won't happen right away. In the meantime, the family is focused on getting both Stephanie and Ryon permanent markers where they're buried in South Carolina.
Stephanie's family said the death sentence wasn't necessarily closure for them, but a chance for the man who killed their family to experience what they went through. Stephanie's father said, quote, "I think I'll get a lot more closure when he's executed and I'm in the witness chamber watching. I just want him to feel that terror. That sounds bad, but that's how I feel. I want to be there. I hope I live another 16 years. My health isn't good, so I hope I live that long," end quote. Damn, just reading that broke my heart so bad, and not for nothing, but I pray he gets to live long enough to see Tyrone take his last breath as well. Well, first of all, I made a promise to myself not to cover stories involving children because it eats me alive ever since I covered the story of T.R. Lee Palmer. I couldn't bring myself to speak on cases involving children under a certain age. However, thank you to one of our primas that suggested this story to be covered. I'm glad I did it because both Ryon and his beautiful mommy Stephanie deserve for their names to be kept alive. Neither of them deserve to be in cold blood like that. Whatever it was that they were arguing about, it didn't warrant for Tyrone to pull out his gun and kill Stephanie, then go hunt her son down in the house that they welcomed him into and kill him as well. I just did another story that's wildly similar to this one, but it's on my Patreon, where a man murdered a woman for no reason other than he didn't like what the woman was saying, so he viciously attacked and murdered her. As a man, your only job was to leave. That's it. Even if the woman is yelling, screaming, cursing you out, etc., just leave. It really is that simple in some cases. And I say some because, you know, you do have some women who will try to violently harm or even kill a man during a dispute, and that's the only time I find it acceptable to do what you got to do, because in those cases it's like it's either you or me. However, in this case, not only did he take Stephanie's life, but he took little Ryan's life as well. Now, you do have some people who say they believe Tyrone may have been suffering with PTSD as a result of his time in the military. A forensic psychologist had actually diagnosed Tyrone with major depression, anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorder, and paranoia. His condition was marked by anger. In years prior to the murders he committed, Tyrone had been treated for depression and expressed suicidal thoughts, the irony in that. And although he worked as a paralegal in the Florida Attorney General's office for a few months in 2017, he had trouble getting along with his co-workers and almost always got to work late or didn't even show up at all. It got to the point where he was asked to resign, but there was a different expert at trial that was testifying for the state and said that Tyrone's issues were not a result of any of the things stated a moment ago, but instead he possessed dangerous antisocial tendencies. However, prosecution stated that no matter the struggles Tyrone was facing, it was just not an excuse for the crimes he committed. You also got some people who believe that Stephanie quite possibly could have said those nasty things to Tyrone about his deceased son, prompting him to snap, especially if he was battling all those issues. I think at this point, only God and Tyrone knows the truth as to what happened in that bedroom and why it happened. But what I do know is that little boy died in the worst way, with sheer terror, probably knowing he would never see another day alive. He would never get the chance to go to America's Got Talent. He would never play another drum or any musical instrument ever again. Tyrone's actions prematurely removed 2 angels from this world, and I can only send my deepest condolences to their family and loved ones still to this day. Both Stephanie and Ryon's bodies were brought back home to South Carolina for their homegoing services. Today, Stephanie would have been 39 and Ryon would have been 15. May the souls of Stephanie and her precious baby boy Ricky Ryon Willis continue to rest in heavenly peace. Gone, but you'll never be forgotten.